Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Beth, here to help you fulfill your potential in meditation. As most of you know, I don't have just one method that I teach to everybody, like one size fits all. Instead, I much prefer to teach people one-on-one. And the reason is that you're all different. So if anything isn't quite working for you, if anything doesn't quite fit, then be in touch and I'll be more than happy to discuss those things with you one-on-one. Today's video is about the 12 links of dependent origination, a very famous teaching of the Buddha. And today I want to speak a little bit about what this teaching is and why it is important in our meditation practice. Now, as we start to discern cause and effect in our Vipassana practice, it becomes clear that there are very many types of cause. In the Pali text, we find 24 main types of cause, and those are just the main ones. We've also got the subtypes of those causes. So in any one moment of suffering, we've got very many dozens of types of cause at play. So, how do we unpick this? How do we figure out which of these causes are the important ones? Well, this is where the Buddha's teaching on dependent origination becomes really important. And what the Buddha has done in these 12 links of dependent origination is condense the most important types of cause that we need to be able to discern in order to untangle our suffering. Now, we might know a little bit about the life of the Buddha. I'm not going to go into great detail here. Enough to say that at some point the Buddha realized that we are all going to get old, we're all going to get sick, and we're all going to die. And the Buddha wanted to find a way out of that type of suffering. He wanted to find a way to escape old age, sickness, and death. Now, obviously, old age, sickness, and death have very, very many different causes. But the Buddha asked himself this really simple question: without which one thing would there be no more old age, sickness, and death? Which one cause would I have to remove in order for there to be no more old age, sickness, and death? And the answer that the Buddha came to, revolutionary really, is birth. As soon as we've been born, it's sure that we're going to get old, we're going to get sick, we're going to die. So birth is the cause for old age, sickness, and death. And there we have one of the links of dependent origination. But the Buddha didn't stop there. He then went on to ask, well, okay, without which one thing would there be no birth? And there would be no birth if there were not the existence of the karma that produced the birth. Without which one thing would there not be that karma? If there were no clinging. And without which one thing would there not be clinging? If there were no craving. Without which one thing would there not be craving? If there were no Vedana. Vedana is the quality of mind that experiences some things as being pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. So because we experience some things as being pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, it's the basis for craving. We want more of the things that feel good and less of the things that feel bad. Without which one thing would there not be this Vedana? If there were no contact, phassa. And without which one thing would there not be contact? If there were no six sense bases. If this body and mind were not sensitive, but because this body and mind is sensitive, we have contact to objects, then Vedana, then craving. Without which one thing would there not be these six sensitive sense bases? If there were no materiality, mentality, nama rupa, that we've been discussing in the earlier stages of our Vipassana practice. And without which one thing would there not be this materiality, mentality, nama rupa? If there were no consciousness, especially the first conscious moment of the life. Without which one thing would there be no consciousness? If there were no karma to produce that consciousness. And without which one thing would there be no karma? If there were no delusion. And when the Buddha landed on delusion, he exclaimed, oh, origination, I've found the origin of this whole mass of suffering, because we can remove delusion. That's what we do with our Vipassana practice. And as we remove delusion, we start to untangle these 12 links of dependent origination until we can untangle the old age, sickness and death, and we can find an escape from suffering. So there's a brief overview of the 12 links of dependent origination, very brief. And what I'm going to do in future videos is take these links one at a time and look at how we can practically discern them in our meditation practice, so that we personally can untangle these 12 links and we can make an end of suffering. It's possible. Let's not waste time. Now is the time to get off of the screens, get onto the cushions and actually do some practice. If anything isn't working for you, if anything's unclear, then be in touch and I'll be more than happy to discuss those things with you one-on-one. As most of you know, I do all of my work on a donation basis, so I encourage you to support me either through Patreon or through my website so that I can continue to make these videos. Thank you so much for your support. Wishing you the best with your meditation.